myself again. But it's the only way.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters, and it is two more sleeps till Christmas, and welcome along to the Retro Show, and tonight we are looking at Newcastle against Leeds United through the ages. Probably best to keep off the match that we've just seen, to be honest. That not too distant game that we've just watched, so plenty good games to talk about, and as always I'm joined by a panel of the retro team, if you like. So we've got Steve Wilkinson, George Mitchell, we've got Mitch and Stu who are together today, and we've got Steve Hasty. And I'm sorry to do this to you, Steve, but I am going to move you to there because we always start with George. Good evening, George.
Hello, Steve. Hi, everybody.
Good to see you, mate. Leeds United. Some people call it the Yorkshire Derby. Give us your first memory of matches against Leeds United.
Well, can I do a personal one this time, and I'll do a match?
Of course, do what you want. Yeah.
Because always when you're first, I worry about knocking a hole in somebody else's that's following it. So I've got two tonight. The first one is very personal, and I hope you catch on why. April 1957, right? When I'm 15, I haven't quite left school yet, and I get a postcard to say, after reporting for James's Park on Saturday morning, to go with the ends, that's the under-18 team, to Leeds to play in an FA Youth Cup match. And so that's what I do, and I'm thinking to myself, well, this is great. I'm 15 and I'm with all these 18, 19-year-olds who've got professional contracts, and I'm going to enjoy watching this game. Well, surprise, surprise, when I got there, I was handed the number 6 shirt. So I wasn't watching at all. I was actually playing. And also, to my great pleasure, the number 4 shirt went to my great friend, George Dalton, who eventually played in our first team. So we had two 15-year-olds, and amongst all these lads who eventually went on to win the FA Youth Cup, Reg Evans, Ken Hales, Ken Bowron, Ken Walton, the goalkeeper, Billy Thompson, the centre-half. Quite a lot of them played, well, them last 4 played in the first team. And it was a great thrill. Now, the thing about it is when he went with the ends, it was Ted Hughes that ran it. It was an ex-Newcastle head teacher, St Aloysius at school head teacher. And we played Leeds in this cup match. And at half-time, Ted came in, and he used to do this quite regularly. If there was something special he wanted you to see or somebody special he wanted you to meet, he'd do it at half-time. Permission to do it at half-time. So we were playing on this ground, which was miles away from Leeds. And he came in and he said, well, the referees give her an extra 10 minutes so somebody can come and talk to you. And so we're all sitting quite big-eyed, wondering who the hell was going to come through the door. And in walked this huge guy, this giant of a guy in a white suit. And, of course, he was one of the first men of colour I'd ever seen, to be perfectly honest, close up to. And his name was John Charles. And he had just signed for Juventus a few days before. And then he came, a beautiful man, soft, lovely, deep Welsh lilt, spoke to everybody in the team and made comments about what they'd done in the first half that he'd been watching. Absolutely fantastic. And what a lovely man. And off he went away, of course, to play for Juventus. But what a career. Not only was he a fantastic centre forward, and I want to do him justice and get the stats right. When he played centre forward for Leeds, it's the first time, because he went back to Leeds, 297 games and 157 goals.
Wow.
Then he went to Juventus, 155 games and 118 goals. And of course, that's where in Turin he got the big nickname of Il Gigante Buono, the gentle giant is in Italian. And that name stuck. He was the gentle giant forever after that. And what a fantastic pedigree. But as I say, what a lovely man as well. So I hope you don't mind that person, Henry, because it was very important to me at the time. His family, of course, was steeped in football. His brother Mel played for Leeds. His nephew Jeremy played for Cardiff, and his grandson now is in the youth squad at Swansea. So there's a pedigree for that lad to live up to. But I hope you didn't mind us using a very personal memory for such a great footballer as John Charles.
No, of course not, mate. Honestly, George, it's always a pleasure to hear your stories, and it doesn't matter what you're talking about. I know that the viewers enjoy it as well. Steve, good evening. Newcastle versus Leeds, usually a feisty fixture. One which we've not really had a great deal of, though, because Leeds dropped like the proverbial stone, and we never saw them again.
Yeah, it's amazing this year that they're being considered as this great team, and they've been in the wilderness for the last 16 years. But I want to go back. You used the word there that took the word out of my mouth of feisty, because as you said at the beginning, it was quite often it was the derby. It is this season. It's the nearest game we've got in the Premier League, because Sunderland are in the wilderness these days. But there were always feisty games, and I go back to what I'm going to cover is way back to 1969, and it was the probably one of the peaks of Leeds' successes under Don Revie. And one of the things that because it was 11-a-side in those days, and you mainly picked the same team all the time, you could almost go through. I remember going through our team in the 60s, early when we got promotion from the second division, and you could go through Leeds' team at that time, and it was Gary Sprague, it was Reaney, it was Cooper. The halfback line, as they still used to call it in those days, fantastic halfback line of Bremner, Charlton, and Norman Hunter. And then up front you had Peter Lorimer, Alan Clark, Mick Jones, Giles, and then who was the other one? Paul Madeley. That was usually the Leeds team. And in 1968, 69, they'd won the league. And so it was a great game. And they came up to St James's, because it used to happen in those days that you tended to play the derby matches at Christmas and Easter, or it was Boxing Day on that year. We played them at St James's Park, and we had just won the Fairs Cup the year before. Leeds had won the league. They were top of the league at the time, and so it was a cracking match. There was 54,000 there, and by half time we were winning 2-0. Goals from Wyn Davies, my hero at the time, who had, given Jack Charlton a run for his money in that game, and then Pop Robson a goal laid on by Wyn Davies, which was something that happened pretty regularly at that sort of time. George will remember, and when Wyn signed, him and Pop Robson had a fantastic partnership, particularly in the Fairs Cup. So by half time we're winning 2-0. Leeds rallied in the second half, and Johnny Giles scored round about the hour. But it was one of those blood and thunder games up to the end, and we hung on to win 2-1. I think it was the first time Leeds had lost since the beginning of the season. So, and I think they did go on to win the league that season, or was second anyway. They were right up there at that time, and so it was a great scalp. And Newcastle at the time, a good team, would won the Fairs Cup, were in contention to go on again. We got the quarter final, lost to Anderlecht. So it was a great game, and it's back to me teens, and I can't remember a great amount of the game, but there were always, as you said, Steve, very feisty games, and it continues, and no doubt would have been last week if there'd been a crowd in. So that's my first memory of Leeds going back.
Okay,
a win. Okay.
Great stuff. No, excellent. 1969. Fantastic. Mitch and Stu, going to come to you. Over to you guys. Who wants to go first?
Jim will set off, because we were both going to talk about the same game. So,
I thought you were youngsters.
Not as most recent as other days, thankfully. We're trying to erase that from memory. But my first game with Leeds was the one that Mick Quinn scored the 4 goals in. And it was 1989-90. We know how that season ended, unfortunately. But there was a big excitement about it. The day before, now I'm sure everyone on the show remember this, but the day before, you had to queue up to get your tickets. So on the Friday afternoon, I was queuing to get me tickets from the ticket office, so at the back of the stand. Got the tickets with my younger brother, and I think it was the Heath that was with us. And we're just walking back down the bank, and this maroon coloured Jaguar come past. And my younger brother, a bit cheeky in that, he says, knock on the window, he says, any chance of a lift? Window comes down, he says, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to Kingston Park. And he says, I can drop you as far as Regent Centre Metro Station. So, oh, that's fantastic, thank you very much. It was Gordon McKee. So we'll jump in his car, and we hadn't even got to the gates at the bottom of where the Gallagher, where the Shark Corner is. And there was a protest, wasn't it? It was the sack the board era, and everyone was like pelting the car and shaking the car. And the whistleblower were getting called scab and everything, sitting in this car. So anyway, we made it home safe enough. We got to the game the next day. And we're really excited. It was McGee and Quinn up front together. And I was really pleased to watch John Gallagher, who scored the first goal in that game. A lot of people don't remember. They just remember Mickey Quinn's 4 goals. And John Gallagher had been playing for Falkirk, and as you're aware, I've been up to a lot of Hearts games in the past, and I've seen him play really, really well for Hearts. That's in there, yeah. So he had an absolutely outstanding debut, and it was purely overshadowed by the mighty Quinn's 4 goals. And you go away with like, that's it, you've got the bug, you just know that this is going to be the season, this is it, and it just takes you. And that season was, as I said, it ended really bad. It was a roller coaster of pure emotion and most of it joy. And it was one of the most joyful seasons looking back for what we had, how the season started, prior to the season, what was expected, and how it went on after that 5-2 was just brilliant. And you hark back to those days now. You start thinking, I wish you could have them back again. No, you didn't think those would be one of the highlights. I just love that game. The 5-2 was the first one, and by pure chance, the same score happened in reverse last week. So I'm going to let Mitch tell you that.
At least you weren't really watching it with them.
No, I wasn't.
Because we just come from church, yes. From church where the Leeds fans gather to congregate. And I watched the game the other day, and they were in. They're a canny lot. And to be fair, I've enjoyed spending a lot of time with the Leeds fans over here. They're good crack and they're good lads. And before our game, actually, somebody was working his ticket for the bar staff, and one of the Leeds lads sorted it out in a rather forthright manner, shall we say. But that was quite right and proper to look after those girls, because they look after everybody in that bar with a smile on their face and earn pennies. And some of them haven't been paid for 3 months and still do everything with a smile on their face. And that's sort of like the character that Leeds lads that get in there, it's that proper football lads.
Working class lads, yeah.
Proper football lads. But I was going to talk about the same game as well, because for me, that was my first year with a season ticket. And it was, I've talked about this, about the Everton game that time, where you go in thinking we've signed all these players and we're going to be brilliant and this is the season. And we got the result on the opening day. That was just magical. But also, sometimes you can get a player wrong. And I left that game thinking Wayne Faraday was fantastic. and it turns out Wayne Faraday had all the pace of Alan Wells and all the ball control of Alan Wells, which is not necessarily the combination you want. I still think a lot of the gates around the ground to keep him in. Because he would run all day, but sadly nowhere. But yeah, it was one of those kind of heydays where you get the opening day result and everything's buzzing and everywhere's buzzing. Yeah, it was sunshine and all. And some of the Leeds lads getting the send off down Pink Lane towards the station was quite amusing too afterwards. But yeah, that day. Because I think it wasn't just Quinn and Gallagher. I think we had Faraday, Dillon, and who else? There was another one that made their debut. It was five players made their debut that day. And so we've had this team that had been assembled, and it looked like it was going to work.
Was your dad's brother-in-law in Big Day when all that trouble was
I don't know. I couldn't smell any emotion.
Great stuff. Good Good memories, lads, and I remember that game as well. The United supporters for change, people outside the ground, and trying to stop people going in. But I think it was about 24,000 who went into that game, and what a game it was! And as I say, something which has carved Mickey Quinn's name in black and white folklore. And nice to see him still in tune with the club and the supporters yesterday when he came out on social media and gave an honest account of what happened last night. John Mitchison, he remembers a game in 72. He says, evening all, I remember Albert Johansson for Leeds United at St James's Park. At Newcastle, 4 goals in the first 5 minutes. Supermac got the winner. Barry Davis on Match of the Day saying it's raining goals. Thanks for your memory, John. Malcolm Taylor, even Malky, he says, evening chaps, my best game versus Leeds was the 4-3. What completed a fantastic week following our 3-1 versus Arsenal. Great times. So Steve, over to you, mate, for your memory.
It's funny you should mention that time for change because I was outside the ground. I didn't go into that. We had a huge debate during the close season whether or not we should all be going to match, and we all decided that no, we're not going to go. I tell you what, we all dashed back the following week. We couldn't get in quick enough after that Mickey Quinn game. But no, my first recollection of a Leeds match was Boxing Day 73. Sadly, a 1-0 defeat with a goal by Paul Madeley in an absolutely chock-a-block St James's Park. The reason I remember it is because we used to, like a lot of families in those days, you used to have family get-togethers at Boxing Day. And it was always... my father didn't have a family. He just had his mum. Didn't have any brothers or sisters or anything like that. So it was always dictated to by my mum's side of the family. And one of her brothers always used to have a big house, so we always used to go there, and all the kids were there, and his family were a little bit more grown up, so it was always the place to go. And of course, Newcastle were playing on Boxing Day, weren't they, at home? And it was Leeds United. So the big argument from Christmas morning all the way through Boxing Day was whether or not we were going to be able to get to the match. And my dad was adamant we were going. My mother was adamant we weren't. But the compromise was that we would go, and then we would make sure that we got to my uncle's house on Benton Park Road straight after the game. Had to come straight to there. Couldn't go home. Had to come back to the family party. So I remember my dad in the car dropped the family off. I think it was my mum and my sister and my 2 brothers. They were left. We went to the match. We came back. We got beat 1-0, as I say, Paul Madeley. But it was just the fact that you had a Christmas game. It was one of the first Christmas sort of fixtures that I remember. Remember it for all the wrong reasons, obviously because of the defeat. But as Steve W said earlier, we did tend to play them quite a lot at Boxing Day and at Easter in those days, because it was a big fixture as well. It was an important game. And somebody asked it early on at the bottom on the ticker there. Whether they were dirty Leeds, and they were. I mean, let's face it, they were dirty Leeds. I mean, that Don Revy side that he put together over those years, they were absolutely filthy team. They were the most sort of professional team that you'd ever come across in terms of knowing every trick in the book. They looked after each other, mind. I mean, if Bremner got brought down, Giles was straight in there to stamp on somebody. If Bremner if Giles got brought down, it was Bremner, it was Hunter, and so it went through. Big Jack, he had a nasty streak about him when he was on the football pitch as well. But they played together, they worked together. They had one player in that team. One player that Steve didn't mention from round about that time, and it was a little bit later, and that was Eddie Gray. And I always thought Eddie Gray was an absolutely fantastic footballer. The ball used to stick to his toe. He was a twinkle toes, but of course he was one of those players because he was the skillful player among that team. The others could handle themselves, and he was very much the sort of ball playing footballer in their team. And he used to get chopped down something rotten. But I tell you what, Clark was nasty. He was terrible at talkings, by the way. Alan Clark went to a talking with him once, and it was probably the most boring talking I've ever been to. We've been to some shocking talkings in the past, Steve, haven't we? But the one that Alan Clark did, dear me, I thought we're all going to fall asleep. And he at one point, I think he was asleep himself. I think he was talking in his sleep, you know. But they were a horrible team. They were. I mean, let's not beat about the bush. Revy's team was horrible, and it was so funny, wasn't it? In '74 when I think it was '74 when Cloughie took over and he huffed them all, and you saw what petulant footballers they were once that happened.
Okay.
Steve, if you don't mind us jumping in, I tell you, we've got a good tale about that Leeds team. Is Ollie Burton. If you speak to some of the Fairs Club lads, and Ollie tells a tale about him getting kicked all over the place by Jack Charlton, and eventually in the second half at the Gallagher end, John McNamee got hold of Jackie Charlton and pinned him up against a goalpost with his feet dangling off the ground, apparently. I'll tell you what, it must take some cojones to do that to Big Jack. And honestly, those Fairs Club guys have got some fantastic tales about battles, literal battles with that Leeds team.
Yeah, definitely. George,
That's my next memory.
come on then. You go for it, George. Go for it.
1971, 50,000 in Gallagher, and it was the team that Steve talked about. You know, Sprague, Madeley, Rainey, Cooper, Hunter, Charlton, Bates, Giles, Jones, Lorimer and Clark. And it wasn't a football match. It was an absolute kicking match. The strap across the bottom, the lad used Cloughie's word. They were a vile team. They weren't a bad team. They were vile. They wouldn't exist now. You wouldn't need VAR for the referee to send them anybody off because it was just blatant. And they did protect each other. That's absolutely right. And it was a 1-1. John Tudor scored our goal in the first half with a fantastic, typical diving header. And the equaliser was from Peter Lorimer from about 35 yards, the usual thump that Lorimer used to have in his either foot. He could bang them in from wherever if he got the shot. But the thing that highlighted the match was, as I say, it was a kicking match. It wasn't a football match. Midway through the second half, they were having a go at Wyn Davies. Not Wyn Davies. I'm just looking at John Tudor in the penalty area, a corner. And John Tudor was on his backside twice, once from Jack Charlton and once from Norman Hunter. And it was going on, and the referee tried to calm it down. So the one that calmed it down was Big John McNamee. He went up, he laid Hunter on his backside, and then he got hold of Jackie Charlton by the throat here and put him up against the goalpost at the Gallagher end and just hung him there for about 2 minutes till the referee kind of said, well, get off. Because John McNamee wasn't going to let go. And that really typified what Leeds brought out of other people as well. It brought the worst out of everybody else. But Charlton and Hunter were blatant, and Giles and Bremner used to be the sneaky ones. They'd go around the corner and have a sly dig when somebody wasn't looking and that sort of thing, and wind people up and get them sent off. They were, vile is the word Cloughie used, and vile is the word I would use. As I say, John McNamee nearly just about throttled them all. You need to remember too that about this time, Jack Charlton went on to a talk show. And on the talk show, the host, I think it was Parkinson, asked him about players he played against and whether players he didn't like. And he said on the talk show, I've got a little black book and I put them all in my little black book. But on the Monday after the talk show, he was suspended by the FA for his little black book. Just for what he said, not for what he did. And they really were wicked. There's no doubt about it. But as somebody's already said, they looked after each other. They backed each other up. But none of them could put a hand on John McNamee that day. So that's a 50,000 crowd memory of Leeds United. not a great football game, but by Jove, was it a tough game. And our lads held their own. I mean, John Craggs, Frank Clark was coming in then, Bob Moncur, Tommy Gibb, Jim Smith was getting kicked all over the place. And two young lads, Keith Dyson and Alan Foggan, had to be protected as well. But as I say, Big John McNamee settled the arguments.
Big Dad?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Steve. Didn't Billy Bremner put you up the backside playing for England schoolboys? Against
For the North of England schoolboys at Hibs, yes. I started that match at centre half for the North of England against the South of Scotland, and Daddy Dawson, who was running the Northumberland team then, came into the dressing room and said, "Hey, we've been sold a pup here. This isn't the South of Scotland team. It's the full Scottish international team that you're playing." So out we went. We got beat 3-1. But I started at centre half. But the kid on that right wing, little ginger kid who was younger than all of us, was giving the fullback a hell of a time. In fact, he laid on 2 of the goals. So they shifted me out to centre half and put Chinky Richardson into centre. I shouldn't use that word, but I'd get locked up for using that word. That's what his nickname was, Chinky Richardson. Went into centre half and I went left back. And he just gave me the run around as well. And it wasn't until a couple of years later I got the whole programme out and I realised who it was. It was bloody Billy Bremner. So
yes, George. It is the Retro Show, George, so I think you might get away with it. But anyone who's offended by that, we do apologise.
Well, it's what the lad was known as, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they could think of some things I was
in quotes. You can use it if it's in quotes, can't you? If it's all right.
Yeah, George knows the law better than any of us, so... All right, Steve. On to you, Steve Wilkinson. On to you, mate. Your next story about Leeds.
Well, we talked about the feistiness of the games themselves, but the same was with the fans. And nobody's yet done a game at Ellen Road, but I've probably been to Ellen Road about 3 times. And my dad even got involved in the fight at Ellen Road. There was pushing going on and all sorts. I think it was the game 1996. I think it was. It was a roughish game. Now, one of the, as you know, I'm in a wheelchair. One of the problems at that time, I only started to go in a wheelchair in the 90s. You didn't always have a separate area amongst your own fans for people in wheelchairs. So all the wheelchair users of both clubs were together. So I was in amongst the Leeds fans. Well, if you can't sort of keep yourself quiet if it's a game when you want to put your passion out. You know what it's like. And it was a rough game as always. Carlton Palmer got sent off in the first half. You remember Carlton Palmer and he followed through on a tackle and I don't know whether it was a tackle but he was sent off. So that put a bit more tension on the game. And then in the second half, a great move through the midfield. Forward passes. We're not used to forward passes from the midfield, but Beardsley put a forward pass through to Rob Lee, who slipped Shearer inside the penalty area, and Shearer slotted it in. Well, you can imagine what I went mental. But I'm amongst Leeds fans. Obviously there was other Newcastle fans as well. But you start getting picked on and bullied and getting threatened with a bloke with a walking stick was sort of threatening us and all sorts. So it was a bit rough. So fortunately nowadays it's safer to be segregated with your own fans as it is now. But it was a rough game. But it was typical. And I say before the match, my dad got involved with an altercation outside the ground with somebody, and there was pushing going on. And I don't think in all the years I went to the match with my dad, right up from the 60s when I first went, and he was still going, until the turn of the century. And I can't remember ever getting involved in a fight other than that match at Leeds on 1996. But we won, which was great, and it was still the time of the good Keegan era, and the days that we would love to have back nowadays, wouldn't we?
Little footnote on Alan Shearer, who Steve Wilkinson mentioned there. God, he loved scoring against Leeds. 20 games, 19 goals. Certainly missed Leeds when they got relegated when he was at Newcastle. But some stat that still a record in the Premier League to this day for how many goals one person has scored against a team. Over to you, Mitch and Stu, for your next recollections.
Well, I'm torn between two. I was going to, because Mitch was talking about the bar that we drink with the Leeds fans, I was going to mention the game there. But now Steve's just mentioned a bit of violence, so I could mention one of that game as well. Which one? TikTok. Right, we'll go for the violence. It was a promotion. We're being promoted. It was the first year of 93, 94. And if anyone who got the train down that day, there was I suppose the best phrase is a welcoming committee for you. And the police, the Yorkshire police, are probably one of the worst police forces if you go away again. And they would very certainly turn the blind eye and stuff like that. So I know in a previous show, Steve, you're talking about the billboard with the chicken run and that. This from the train station to the ground was a bit like that. And if you can put that picture back on of the ground, there's a courtyard behind the top end where the away fans were. It was all just blocked off. And the police would lock the gates and just sort of help yourselves, lads. And you get, and for about 20 minutes, even for the people with kids, everything trying to, or the scarves as they were called, trying to get themselves through, just to even just get in through the turnstiles. They had to get through all this violence, and it was incredible in a bad way, shall I say. But that was the game that Andy Cole scored very early on. It was on April Fool's Day as well. It was, I think we finished third that year. First season up, we finished third. To the left there was like we just got locked in like in a, what they called? Like in a panic sort of thing. It was like a free for all. Unfortunately, like some people got mixed up and there was some. But then I think Chris Fairclough scored the equaliser later on. And I just remember it was April Fool's Day and eventually we're getting back onto the trains with noses pointed in the wrong direction and people like trying to pick their ears up and stuff like that. It wasn't a good recollection for that, but I loved that season because that was our first in the Premier League and we weren't meant to do anything at all, you know. As you all know, like bear in mind, a couple of years before that, we're nearly where Sunderland are now. You know, so the turnaround of that was immense. So I'll leave the next game for the bar for the next time round. So I just thought I'd mention that one because it was April Fool's Day and it was quite a bit of a, for those who got the train down, or especially the train I was on, it wasn't a nice experience trying to get into the ground. And then what rounded off with conceding a goal later on. That's it. What about you, Mr.
Mitch?
Right, I am going to go with one. December 2001, around about this kind of time of year, when we went down to Leeds. And I was actually, my wife at the time, she was graduated as a lawyer, and she had a classmate who lived like kind of halfway between Huddersfield and Leeds. And her other half was a Leeds season ticket holder. And the concocted this thing where we'd go down to a barbecue, and then he'd take me to the match, and it would be all sort of like nice and cosy and pleasant. So we'll go down, and then he got a ticket next to his seat for me. Takes us into, I'm sat in the Leeds end, on best behaviour, on entire best behaviour. And after about 50 minutes, we're 3-1 down. And I'm sat there just biting my lip, putting up with the little smirks and sneers. And then all of a sudden, the comeback's on. And then Shearer hits an equaliser from the penalty spot. I think it was after about 70 minutes. And after that, once it went 3-3, that game was only going one way. That game was only going one way. You could see the entire Leeds team totally deflated. They were popped with a pin, and the crowd was stony silent. And I'm sat in one of the main stands of Leeds, sat on my hands, quite literally. Looking at our lot, I could see some of my mates in the away and going absolutely mental, thinking to myself, I would rather be down there. And then, of course, 90th minute and plus, up pops Nobby Solano with a beautiful finish across the keeper. That finish Our go nuts. The home end starts emptying out, and I'm getting daggers from this bloke who's taking us to the game. And it was literally the first day I'd met him. So I'm still biting my lip and smiling nicely and having put up with all the sneers. I wasn't giving any of it back. We had a very, very, very quiet drive back to the house where there was a barbecue being done for the family members there. So I get in, and I excuse myself, went to the toilet, and I just went mental in the toilet. 90 minutes of transformation came out in one massive volcano of emotion. Hello. Of course, I then walk out the back garden to find everybody's hurt. And there was lots of daggers and lots of stony faces, and I was pulled to one side by the and basically was told I was a very naughty boy and not to do the game. So yeah, I had to keep my dog shut for the rest of the night, but I was just sat there with a beer and an excitement and a smirk on my face for the rest of the evening. And what an absolutely cracking game. And if you have a look at it on YouTube, you'll see what I mean. The minute that Shearer penalty goes in fact, the minute the penalty was given, Leeds had given up. The white flags came out because they knew the penalty was more likely to go in than not. And from that point, there was only one winner. And I actually just wish I'd been in our end to enjoy it even more. Because I could see Paul Fletcher and Big Mate and a couple of other lads from Wallsend down there absolutely go nuts in the bottom corner. And I'm thinking, I should be with you. And I'm sat with the home fans, sat in my hands, and I can't say a thing. Because I think if I had said a thing, I think I'd be battered left, right, and centre. Because they're battling the home end.
No, and the worst about that, Mitch, as well, when you get the penalty, you sort of want to leap up when you get the penalty. I had that at Coventry once. We got a penalty in Coventry, and I was with Coventry fans, and they're all sort of looking at you, and you know you cannot miss the penalty because you're going to get some stick.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, I just want to say thank you to newworkwear.com, the specialist in the supply and branding of clothing for the workplace, who are sponsoring the StreamYard application, and qtechshop.co.uk, who are sponsoring the show since the start of it, really. The makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, and the makers of the t-shirts, which are available from newcastlelegends.com. Don't forget, you can put in a last minute bid for the food bank t-shirt, which is still on my Twitter, which is at Steve Wraith, and all proceeds going to the food bank. If you like the show, please subscribe. Just click this little logo in the bottom right hand corner. Give the show a like, and also comment and share. Thank you very much for that. Steve, over to you, mate, for your final memory of Newcastle against Leeds.
Yeah, I mean, because of the dirty Leeds, I'm going to go back to 74. Beat them 3-2. Supermac, Tudor, and Jinky Jim Smith, and just the very fact that we managed to clear that dirty Leeds team off the park, score 3 goals. They scored 2, but we were the better team. It was at the time when you were going, you were going the match on your own by then. You were with a couple of pals. You were on the Gallagher end, which is where we used to be. And it was just the very fact that it was that Leeds team. I mean, that Leeds team the following season, I mean, they won the league and they went on to play in the European Cup final in 75, where they completely disgraced themselves in Paris, the fans. Remy had gone by then. And it was just there was just something about beating Leeds. And it's a bit like now, I suppose. We went through the phase where you always want to beat Man U. Now everybody wants to beat Liverpool. You always feel as though you've done good when you pit yourself against the top team in the country, and you come off first best. And that's the way it was. And that's like you went to school the next day and you were like, we're beating Leeds, because they were like, they were a good team, in terms of success. And because of the dirtiness, they were the team that everybody wanted to beat. And we did it. And that for me, when you look at those scorers, you look at McDonald, you look at Tudor, and you look at Jinky Jim Smith, absolute idols, absolute great footballers, great people. The skill of Jinky, the goals of Supermac, and and the link-up play and the heading ability of John Tudor, you know, you couldn't want for three better footballers in your team at that particular time. But they were getting the ammunition supplied by an ex-Leeds player in Terry Hibbert. And what can you say? You know, they're another absolute like gem of a footballer. And it's just those memories as a youngster when you were going to the match and you were seeing those players, and you still remember them now. You still remember the performances. You still like when you meet Malcolm or you meet Jinky in the Tyneside Irish Centre or in the Three Bulls, and you talk to them, and you still get this buzz about it. You know, you remember those games like they were yesterday. You remember those performances that those players put in, and that's something special. And looking back to the last time we played Leeds, and we said we probably wouldn't mention it. It was only last week, but I'll not remember any of the performances that were put in by any of that team, you know, in years to come. And I doubt many other people will. And I doubt there's any youngsters who were my age, the age I was then in '74, that will be sitting there going, you know, remember so-and-so in Newcastle. It's not going to happen, not with the players, not with performances that are being put in. But Malcolm, John Tudor, Trinky Jim, Terry Hibbert, Terry McDermott, you know, all those great players that we had, that people of my age still revere and remember with such a passion and such pride, because they went out wearing the black and white shirt and they gave you that pride, you know. That's what being a football supporter is about, and I think that's what some of the younger generation are going to lose out on in the years to come. That they'll not be sitting there remembering the great performances of Dwight Gale, you know, or the running ability of Jacob Murphy, you know, or the defensive prowess of any of that back four that were playing on even yesterday's game. You know, it's just not going to happen, and it's sad. It's sad, and it needs to change. And it needs to change now, and we've got to have that change. And you know, players have got to start looking at themselves.
Yeah, and that was something that was reiterated by Steve Howie and Lee Clark today. Lucky enough to have both lads on the show a little bit earlier on. You can catch that on the playlist. Some very forthright views about Steve Bruce, which you don't get on the commercial channels. And a pitch for the manager's job from Lee Clark. Said he'd be up for it. A lot of people asking if he'd take it at the drop of a hat. And he was very keen to say that he would, as long as... I did say as long as he took Steve Howie on. But Steve Howie was saying he would make a good manager as well. So we'll wait and see what happens. A couple of things I want to mention before we move on to our regular slots, and that is, of course, this was an infamous incident after a Leeds game, and again, Steve Howie mentioned that on that show this afternoon. I said, any memories from Leeds? He went, yeah. He says, we're just being told by Kevin Keegan in the dressing room to not to speak to the media and get straight on the bus. And he says, and then we got on the bus and we saw this. So he says, you know, saying one thing for the manager and one thing for the player, which was interesting. And a goal which I always remember was probably one of the most important of that season, and it's John Anderson against Leeds. And 1983-84, Ando, who of course works for Radio Newcastle these days in a commentary capacity, scored the winner, believe it or not, in Division 2, first game of the season, and it was a beautiful left foot shot that would have made the best of strikers proud. It gave Newcastle all 3 points, and when I was looking back at that game, I think one of the most interesting things was there was one substitution in that game, and I'd love to know the story behind it. I'm not sure if George or Steve was at this game. Steve Wilkinson was at this game, but the substitution was Kenny Wharton on for Kevin Carr. So did the goalkeeper get injured that game, and did Kenny Wharton go in goal, George?
Yes, Kevin Carr got his hands kicked. He went for a ball. I'm trying to think who the Leeds player was, but he ended up. I think he ended up with broken fingers, and so they had to get somebody else on to go.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, that answers that question. Interesting. Lots of comments come. Go on. Go for it, George.
Can I make a couple of other points? You notice we've all been saying about Easter time and Christmas time to play Leeds because they were closest to us. Well, this is in the era when fans mattered, and they deliberately did that they'd have one match on Christmas Eve or Christmas or Boxing Day, and the other match at Leeds or up here a couple of days later. And that was deliberately to stop the fans having to travel thousands of miles across the country. And they did the same with the Jokers as well. One at St James's on Boxing Day, and one at the other place a couple of days later. And that was to save the fans travelling all over the bloody country. And as I say, that's when fans matter. The other point is that I was at the Joker place with my dad when they played Leeds, and Johnny Giles broke Sunderland midfielder's leg. Willie McPhee, what McPhee? Does that ring a bell?
It does, yeah.
For Sunderland? Yeah. Well, Giles went into a tackle with that lad, and bear in mind he was just a young kid starting off, and he broke the kid's shin. And there were adult senior players around it actually being physically sick because the injury looked so bad. You know, they could see the break and the lad's stopping, and it didn't finish the lad's career, but it must have come close. And that's the Leeds. That's why they're so valuable. Sorry, Steve, to break in.
No, it's fine. The biggest disappointment about Leeds was, of course, 1973. But enough said about that. Enough said about that. The better. A lot of people asking, is Liam Kennedy coming back before the end of the year? Well, he is. We've got a special tomorrow. It won't be live, but we've already recorded it. This one is again a one for probably retro fans as well as just Newcastle fans in general. Who's the greatest number 9 between 1990 and 2020? So the last 30 years. We did a 1 hour special, myself and Liam Kennedy discussing that. Liam and like everybody from NUFC Matters is having a little bit of time off over Christmas, so we have done a lot of pre-recorded shows, and that will be on tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Steve, were you going to say something?
Can I guess Joe Linton wasn't one of them top players?
He gets a mention, but he's definitely not in the top 9. But I don't think I'm putting any spoilers out there, to be honest. And of course tomorrow night, I'm saying tomorrow night, it's tomorrow afternoon. We've agreed 3 till 4 is going to be a 1 hour Christmas special. The Three Amigos, just so you can get your fix of the Three Amigos before Christmas. We'll be on, we'll have a couple of guests. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of moaning and groaning about last night's game and looking ahead to Mission Impossible, i.e. the Christmas fixtures. And maybe a little bit about some of the stuff that's been written by fans over the last week about the takeover. I'm sure that would probably take up an hour on its own. But yes, it should be an interesting hour tomorrow night, and I'm sure Mitch will be well inebriated. Now, on to celebrity Leeds fans, and there's quite a few lads, as always, and as always, I try to find one to trip you up. I'm not sure whether I will this time, very difficult, but I'll probably forget the name of some of these bloody people myself, but here we go. First one.
That's a lad from the Stereophonics.
Yep, what's his name?
Yeah.
Oh. Kerry's the one.
Oh, we're getting warmer.
Kelly.
Because it's Chris. It's Kelly Jones. Because it's Christmas. I'll give you it because you're on the right track. So okay, next one is it's another musical one. The clue in this is it's not me.
That's the lad. That's the lead singer of James.
Yep.
Sit him.
Dear me, how the top of them drinks up. So yes, the lead singer of James is correct. Next.
That's Ken Hong.
Ken Hong, big Leeds fan.
Yeah.
That's another chef.
Trying to recognise him.
God. He was on Celebrity Chef last year.
Not boring.
Nothing boring. Well, George was close, but I can't give you that one. It's Matt Healy. He's a Leeds fan. Yeah, he was on MasterChef last year, correct? Yeah, so I did manage to get one to trip you up. Next one.
Cricketer. England captain.
Bourne. No. That's like saying,
Putin, isn't it?
Oh,
No, it's not Putin.
Putin, it looks like Putin.
it's Nasser Hussain.
Nasser Hussain. That's why I picked the photo, because he does look like Putin on that photograph, especially when you've had 10 Jaegers. Yeah.
Hey.
Okay.
Oh,
That was the
No,
Miliband,
Miliband, yeah. Miliband, yeah.
Is it?
We shouldn't have done.
Is that ruling from Grange?
That's the
No.
little lad that won
It's a woman, isn't it?
Britain's Got Talent or whatever it was he won.
Not a
The
laugh.
little comedian. Oh, come on, I can't remember the name.
George knows his TV, but doesn't know the names.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
Jack Carroll, who
Jack
was
Carroll, that's it, yeah. Britain's
won
Got
an army of fans on Britain's Got Talent back in
Yeah.
2013.
Goodness
Oh,
gracious.
Jeremy Paxman.
Batsman.
Jeremy Paxman.
Jeremy Paxman, Leeds fan apparently. News to me. Or Newsnight to me.
Colin Montgomery.
Yeah.
He lives there.
Colin Montgomery, yep. And last one,
Oh, Jack.
Jack Shearer.
Jack Shepherd, Coronation Street, of course. Been in it a long time, but another Leeds United fan. Okay, so the lads didn't do too badly there. How are they going to do with players who played for Newcastle United and Leeds?
That Robbie Elliott.
Yeah,
Robbie Elliott.
Robbie Elliott.
Was that bad?
That could be in bed.
Peter Haddock.
Haddock.
No.
That's bad. Is it Ian Bed?
No.
In bed. Oh.
Is that not a young Scott Sellers, maybe?
Ah, he's got it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's what happens when you Google. That's what happened when you Google dodgy photos of Scott Sellers. David Batty, of course.
That's Ian Bennett.
That's Ian Bennett, yeah.
Yeah.
Ian Bennett.
Oh, Viduka. And Alan
Mark-
Smith. as well.
and Alan Smith. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Boy.
Oh, yeah.
Speedo.
Spiro.
Hero.
Michael Bridges.
Michael Bridges.
Michael Bridges, that's it. So the lads get a clean sweep on the players. Easy enough, that one. And as always, we like to finish off with a team. Just a quick retro happy birthday to a friend of the show, Michael Shopra. And another blast from the past, Alex Bruce. Both have the same birthday. And always good to give them a shout out. Okay, so teams. George, I'm going to come to you first. Give us your combined Newcastle United Leeds 11, please.
4-4-2. It's Bennett, Didier Domi, Woodgate, Haddock, Elliott, Milner, Speed, O'Brien, Sellers, Rush and Viduka, and the manager Bobby Robson. And you can pick the substitutes from any of the previous players like Colwell, Bowyer, Henry, Hibbert. There's so many good ones, actually. It's difficult not to leave them out. But that was the final 11 I settled on anyway.
Okay, Steve Wilkinson, over to you, mate.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of midfield players. So picking a midfield, I've gone 4-4-2 as well. I put Lazaro at right back. He apparently, who were borrowed last year, he played my Leeds as well. Woodgate, Caldwell, and Vernon Anita at the back on the left side. Midfield: Milner, Batty, Speed, and Terry Hibbert. And up front, Viduka and John Henry played up front. And the only manager who I could find had any connection was John Carver, who was temporary there as well as he was temporary manager at us.
Good shout. Yeah, good shout. Another different team as well. Okay, Mitch, Stu, over to you guys.
Right, I've gone with Ian Bennett in goal because I think that's the only keeper we can find. I've gone with a back four of Peter Haddock at right back, Jonathan Woodgate at centre back, the classiest defender I've ever seen in a black and white shirt. Andy O'Brien with me at centre back. He played a few games for Leeds after he left us. And I can't not put an O'Brien in the team just because. We've gone with Didier Domi at left back because he actually does a lot of telework out here. And the last few days he's been coaching Newcastle up left and centre. I've got to say I would love to have seen him go mental in the studio after the Brentford game last night. That would have been hilarious. He might have done it with Neil Hanley too. Then my midfield I've gone with a 5 with Boyer, Batty, Speed, Scott Sellers, and James Milner. And then Viduka up front, and again, manager John Carver.
Okay. And what about you, Stu?
Hang on, just move along the bus. Right. And obviously, I've got JC manager John Carver in goal, Ian Bennett, the only keeper we could find. Right back, James Milner, left back, Robbie Elliott. And then the best centre half I've ever seen for Newcastle is Jonathan Woodgate, originally at Leeds. I put Fish in as his partner, Peter Haddock, who was actually married to John Carver's sister, for those who didn't know. And great company, if you will. They come on hold at the Tenerife and has lived there, fantastic people. The 4 in midfield is Mitches, which is Batty, Boyer, Speed and Sellers. And up front, Viduka and Smith.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks, mate. Steve Hasty, over to you.
Yeah, very, very similar to that one. I've gone Bennett in goal. I've gone Milner and Elliott at fullback. And I've gone Haddock and Woodgate. And I agree with the sentiment of the two lads there. Absolutely class centre half. Midfield, I've gone Speed, Batty, Boyer, and Terry Hubbard. And up front, I've gone Smith and Viduka. And manager, I've gone a Big Jack.
Big Jack, yeah. Good choice, mate. Good choice. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of Newcastle against Leeds, the Retro Show. Been fantastic to have you guys on over the last few weeks, going back over the memories. I'm looking forward to the new year and being able to get back together and do it. Most of you will have seen the video, but obviously all of us at NUFC Matters have had such a good time doing the show. We did decide to put a little video together to wish all of our viewers a very happy Christmas. So we're just going to stick this on first.
Merry Christmas.
On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a Pavel in a jersey.
On the second day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 2 Warren Bartons and a Pavel in a jersey.
On the third day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 3 John Beresfords, 2 Warren Bartons and a Pavel in a jersey. On the 4th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 4 Nobby Solanas, 3 John Beresfords, 2 Warren Bartons and a Pavel in a jersey.
On the 5th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 5 Peter Jacksons, 4 Nobby Solanas, 3 John Beresfords, 2 Warren Bartons and a Pavel in a jersey.
On the 6th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 6 Steve Howies, 5 Peter Jacksons, 4 Nobby Solanos, 3 John Beresfords, 2 Warren Bartons and a Pavel in a jersey.
And on the 7th day of Christmas, my true love said to me 7 Cantonals.
No, Jamie, stop that now. This is the Newcastle United 12 Days of Christmas, not the Manchester United 12 Days of Christmas. And how many times have I told you? There's only one United.
Oh, sorry, Steve, mate. On the 7th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 7 Rob Lees, 6 Steve Howies, 5 Peter Jacksons, 4 Nobby Solanos, 3 John Beresfords, 2 Warren Bartons, and a Pavel in a jersey. Merry Christmas, everybody.
On the 8th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 8 Peter Beardsley, 7 Rob Lee, 6 Steve Howies, 5 Peter Jacksons, 4 Nobby Solanos, 3 John Beresfords, 2 Warren Bartons, and a Pavel in a jersey.
On the 9th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 9 Alan Shearers, 8 Peter Beardsley, 7 Rob Lee, 6 Steve Howie's, 5 Peter Jacksons, 4 Nobby Solano's, 3 John Beresford's, 2 Warren Barton's, and a Pavel in a jersey.
On the 10th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 10 Lee Clarks, 9 Alan Shearers, 8 Peter Beardsley's, 7 Robert Lee's, 6 Steve Howie's, 5 Peter Jacksons, 4 Nobby Solano's, 3 John Beresford's, 2 Warren Barton's, and a Pavel in a Geordie jersey.
On the 11th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 11 Gary Speeds, 10 Lee Clarks, 9 Alan Shearers, 8 Peter Beasley's, 7 Rob Lee's, 6 Steve Howie's, 5 Peter Jacksons, 4 Nobby Solano's, 3 John Beresford's, 2 Warren Barton's, and a Pavel in a jersey.
On the 12th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 12 Kevin Keegans, 11 Gary Speeds, 10 Lee Clarks, 9 Alan Shearers, 8 Peter Beasley's, 7 Rob Lee's, 6 Steve Howie's, 5 Peter Jacksons, 4 Nobby Solano's, 3 John Beresford's, 2 Warren Barton's, and a Pavel in a jersey.
Hello everybody, happy Christmas to Newcastle fans from the Cernicek family.
Christmas would not be Christmas without a chant for the great man. Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to Rafa Benitez. Away, lads!
Gotta say, that makes me laugh every time. I always laugh at the Spenny Santa one. He's so out of tune, but that's what makes it. That's what makes it. And
did it matter? I mean, it doesn't. You're right. It makes it, Steve.
It was fantastic, and big thanks to Milan. Just to let you know that the Cernicek family are all fitting well. I keep in touch with them, and great to see Milan looking so well. And great.
Nice touch, Steve.
No,
nice touch.
Absolutely fantastic. But thank you to all the NUFC Matters team for joining in and making that very special. None of us are singers, as you can tell, but it's not about the singing that counts. Great stuff. Great to have you on, guys. As I say, you have a good Christmas, and look forward to seeing you all in the new year. Have a great time, lads. Take care. God bless.
Merry Christmas, everybody. All the best.
Good night, like this.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only
Think before you tweet.
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 Please just think before you tweet.
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 Think before you tweet.